Welcome to Shrink Wrapped, episode 9. I'm Allison Colorosi here with my husband, Dr. David Colorosi, and we are here to answer listener questions and my questions. Mostly mine.
I'm looking forward to it. So we're changing format back to the original, which is just you give me questions that I'm not prepped for.
Yeah.
Okay. And there it is still gonna. I think it's still gonna go on a podcast.
Yeah, so if you don't want to look at us, you can get this on podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. Okay.
All right, shoot.
Okay.
There you go.
So my first question, which I feel like is really important, is what is happening with all of these divorces? Glennon Doyle, Rachel Hollis, Jen Hatmaker.
You mean like so you said, so I did a video about Jen Hatmaker and you were saying that they all live in Austin and I didn't think that they all live in Austin.
They all live in Austin. I feel like they're all part of the same writing community. Jen Hatmaker was definitely at Rachel Hollis's conference, and Glennon Doyle, they both have been on both of their podcasts.
Right, okay, Glennon Doyle's gay and got divorced like years ago, like 2016. So she's not part of the like current trend. Or well, here's what I will say is that everybody, so I did a video about Rachel Hollis, and in the comments everybody goes, I bet you she read Glennon Doyle's book. Untamed, which I thought was pretty depressing. You thought it was depressing.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, is she convincing everybody to head out of their relationships?
Yeah. So I'm wondering. And I'm like really surprised about Jen Hatmaker too. And okay, two things. Is it happening because people hang out with each other too much during COVID and they can't run away? And they're like, I need to get away.
Okay, well, I know like the social media is ablaze about it, but I don't think so. For Rachel Hollis, for Jen Hatmaker, for people in that community to get divorced, it's a major hit to their business, their approach to life, their brand. Like, I don't think that it's a rush decision. It takes time to get divorced.
Yeah.
These people are, in order for them to do this, I think they are suffering in their relationships. It feels like it's out of nowhere to us because they're not going to say, back in March, hey, things are going really badly. I don't know if I can be with this guy anymore, but I'm going to try and stick it out. They're not going to give you the warning. It goes from, it's great, or we tell people it's great, to, we're out.
Yeah. I can't, it's really hard for me because every time like a new announcement of divorce happens, especially from that community in particular, it makes my heart hurt.
Why? I don't know. Why does it bother you? I know it bothers you, and I know it bothers other people, but I guess I don't think I totally understand why it, like, to me, I just go, it's a shame. It doesn't change the value of what they were talking about. I feel bad for them. I don't understand. Can you explain why such distress?
I think it does change. Like, to me, it changes the value of what they're talking about because, I was looking up to their relationships. Jen Hatmaker was so funny about her relationship with Brandon. They have 5 kids. In every book of Mess and Moxie, For the Love, all of it. I mean, she talks about issues in their marriage, but how they, what you need. I don't know.
I guess, why is it different? Why is the impact for you so different than if your friend were to get divorced? You've had friends that got divorced. Why do you care? Why is it so much more impactful? Just because you looked up to them?
Yeah, and I feel like they made me think. I actually hope that the listeners can describe what I'm feeling because I cannot. Let's move on. I really can't.
Think the reason why I'm pushing it because I think it would be valuable for the listeners to talk about it.
I don't know. I feel like it's because, they were super intentional and they, Rachel Hollis got up every morning and was like, I'm an excellent wife or an exceptional wife. And they seem on their morning show, they seemed like they had so much fun. And then they said, and I was like, well, we all want that relationship with our spouse. Yeah.
So I think if I'm just hearing what you're saying, I think that it's 2 things. One, you feel a little bit betrayed because they said that our relationship is going well, but more than the shock of it all, it's the idea that they devoted their lives really to having an exceptional relationship. They both put a lot of energy and effort into it. They demonstrated on social media, in their books, they talked about it in their conferences, that they have demanded an exceptional relationship, they've pursued it, and they've achieved it. So you audience, you should listen to us. And then to find out that they weren't able to maintain the exceptional relationship means for you, well, if I'm just an average woman, how can I possibly maintain an exceptional relationship? If they can't do it, then maybe exceptional really isn't out there.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm getting, that's what I think you're saying. Is that right or no? Does that feel right?
Yeah, that feels right. And I feel like I'm ready to move on past this topic.
I guess that's it. She probably had something really good to say, but we're done with that one. Okay.
I just have Elise in the back of my head being like, who are these people?
My sister-in-law listens to this, but she does not like Rachel Hollis, and so it seems like every episode we're talking about Rachel Hollis, and she's like, "Can we wrap it up and move on to a different discussion?"
So she's in the back of my mind. Okay,
all right, go ahead.
So here's another question, which pertains to, I feel like, a lot of people. So how do you build connection with family members when you feel like they trigger you? This is going to be coming up during the holidays, but I feel like a lot of people want better relationships with their parents or better relationships with their siblings, but they, like, for some reason, based on their history, they get triggered by them. How do you move past that in adulthood?
Can you define triggered? Like it triggers some kind of emotional reaction that they don't like, that they can't control?
I feel like sometimes I am less generous, like, emotionally or with patience with my family members than I would be strangers, because, like, they're triggering me. How do I
agree.
I know, but, like,
she talks to her family every single day, but half of them are, you guys are yelling at each other.
Yeah, how do I make that better?
I think it helps if you have your husband yell back at you, "Stop yelling."
Does that
help? Doesn't add value?
Is that a good question?
It's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer to it. You're being I think you're being triggered because there is years and years and years of a past relationship or dynamic, and so when you have your story for what your relationship is like with each of your family members, and so when you enter new interactions with them, you're sort of playing that within the background, this bigger story, right? And so it's hard to have, if you think about just like a normal story that you might read, it's hard to have a main character act in a way that doesn't fit the previous, right, the rest of the book. And so every time you are on the phone and someone says something, you're fighting. Like, so for example, one fight that I hear a lot about is around food in your family, right? You're fighting years of people's behavior around that, or discussion around that, not the specific conversation.
Yeah.
And so you may be more reactive than could be warranted. For the average guy just hearing the conversation, they're like, I'm like,
no, but I feel like everyone is like I have friends that are like, I've been around them with their parents, and I'm always shocked at how they talk to their parents.
Yeah.
And or siblings talk to each other, and I'm wondering, how do we, like, in general, if you find family members or certain relationships triggering, but you want to move past that, how do you do that?
Okay, I have two thoughts.
Okay.
I have a better answer. I think I have a better answer. You tell me if this is better.
Okay.
And I have two thoughts. Here's why I'm conflicted about it. My first answer is you should have perspective. You should think about, here's the sad thing. If you think about your parents or your family members, especially if your parents live far away, you only have X number of meetings or interactions with that person before they pass away. There is a very real timeline that you're operating on. And if you were to think to yourself, I'm only going to meet with this person 18 more times. How do you want to spend those 18 times? You need to have perspective, and you'd go, you know what? Yelling about them about how they're eating is probably less important than creating a close connection with them, because I'm only going to see them 18 or 17 more times. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to have, if you think about, like, if your parents have 10 more years to live and you see them 3 times in a year, right? Maybe there's 30 more visits that you have with that person. How do you have perspective around how you want to have that relationship look? And I think that's true even for your siblings. You have to have perspective around what's the brand that you, or the kind of reputation or the impact you want to have with your family. And I think if you have that perspective, it can help you sort of step out of the weeds a little bit and behave more intentionally. That's my first thought about how would you change it. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is, I think there are probably people that are listening that have very real issues with their family members. And I don't think that because their family members might have a shortened timeline, right? You're not going to be around forever. I don't think that means you have to dishonor your feelings, right? If you were mistreated, it's your right to protect yourself and interact differently with that family member, even though it may rub them the wrong way, and even though it may feel bad for them. You have the right to protect yourself, even if it means that relationship won't be, the perfect relationship. So I think you have to sort of decide what bucket you're in, but the trick would be to interact intentionally.
But so in the moment,
have perspective.
Let's get in there. In the moment,
yeah.
When you feel like okay, here's an example. Let's bring up my sister.
Oh,
I feel
your sister listens to this.
I know she'll appreciate it because I feel like she probably feels the same way. She pokes at me, like how do I just not care? And be like, I'm gonna time limited. I don't talk to her very much.
I am not certain that your sister is intentionally poking at you. I think she may behave like your sister behaves, and because of your relationship with her, you interpret it one way that maybe somebody else may not.
Like you don't.
Is that like I don't? Like with her poking, I don't even know. I don't think she pokes me. But if because I don't have that history. Mm-hmm. Do you think your sister thinks that you poke her?
Do I poke her?
Absolutely, but you don't mean to. All right, go ahead. What else we got? Or you want to? Are we?
No, I don't feel like we've gotten this out.
I feel like I like my perspective answer. No.
I think the perspective is good, but what do you do in the moment? You just be like, how do you forget that they're like?
Yeah, okay, like a tactical, how do you actually in the moment? I think you have to be aware of what you're feeling and be intentional about taking time. And I'm what I want to say is take a deep breath, go to the bathroom, breathe, think about it, right? Separate yourself from the interaction. That's way easier said than done, but that's really what you want to try to do is in the moment when you feel yourself getting upset, find a way to separate yourself enough that you can intellectualize the interaction and decide how you want to act. So that could mean that you go to the bathroom and take a break. It could mean that you go and make yourself a coffee, whatever, find some way to breathe, process it, and decide how you want to act as opposed to just letting your emotions dictate your behavior. Because that's the nightmare, is when you're letting your emotions drive everything and you're not in control.
I got a good idea right now. Okay. I have a good idea. What if, in the moment...
Wait, what happened to that wasn't a good idea?
No, but I feel like that's everyone would say that.
Okay.
My idea is different.
Okay,
so my idea is to think about gratitude during the interaction. So, I get poked, but I could be like, well, she's taking the time to talk to me. She flies out here from all the way from across the world to see me.
Yes. Good answer.
She has a really good outfit on.
Yes.
Typically.
Yes.
And
just as a side note, you have the world's most loving family.
I know.
On the spectrum of your family couldn't be your family's biggest problem is too much love. Okay.
We're aggressive in our love.
Yeah, they're aggressive and they're very loving.
Okay. So next question. Okay, so I listened to a TED Talk this week on a podcast, and her name is Esther Perel. She's a marriage and family therapist that is, I guess, pretty famous. So maybe you've read her work?
I haven't read her work, but I know the name, and I know that I was supposed to listen to that podcast, but I did not.
Well,
this could be a short answer.
I'm just curious about. She has a podcast also called "Where Do We Begin," and she basically you get to hear her in action in a marriage and family situation. So you get to actually listen to a therapy session.
That's cool.
It is cool, and
that's cool and super brave of her. Like, I think it's easy for therapists to be like, oh, well, this is how I do therapy, right? But to actually do it and be willing to have people listen to it.
Well, and in the one I listened to, she was like holding the dude accountable. And I was impressed because I didn't like the guy. Like, anyway, I digress. She is brave and she's famous, and she talks about relationships. So, she does, I think, like, she started out with marriage and family therapy because relationships really interested her, and then she got into like sex therapy too. But her parents survived the Holocaust, and she talks about their relationship and how like relationships were kind of like based on survival, and why people are so dissatisfied in their marriages now is because people now believe it's not just about like survival of the family. It's mostly like survival of the family, but also like they want security, and they want passion, and they want their soulmate, and that one, you can't be everything to one person. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that felt depressing to me, but it did. Like, because I want like a good marriage, that doesn't mean I can have passion in my relationships.
Well, I guess, what's her solution? Does she have she's saying it takes a village, like you should. There wasn't
a solution. Just like one person can't be everything to you.
Well, that is depressing. I mean, I guess I don't understand. I agree with her, kinda. Like, I think that 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, expectations were different, and so there were people that would stay in marriages that to today's standards, wouldn't be that viable, or you wouldn't want to be in there, right? Mm-hmm. I think that standards have changed. People do expect more out of each other, but to me, that's a good thing, and I think it does push the relationships to be better. I have to listen to her, but it sounds a little bit like she's saying, your expectations are higher now, so you need to outsource, all the things that you want, you should outsource and get those needs met, because your partner can't possibly meet all those needs.
But she was saying that that like the reason relationships are so hard now is before there was like roles, and like, people had definite roles, and now people don't have definite roles in relationships, and so it's really muddied. So that was another point. I guess
I don't know what her. I think she's right. I just don't know what the angle is. Like, because here's what it sounds like to me is, 50 years ago, people had different expectations, and as a result of those different expectations, people stayed in relationships longer, even if they were bad relationships. And I agree. I think a lot of times people stayed in relationships because that's what you were supposed to do, and for financial reasons or for child rearing reasons, they stayed together. So things have changed. There's more nuance now, but to me, that's a good thing. We want people to have higher expectations. We want people to demand more. And I don't think that having super clear, this is my role, this is your role, boundaries in a relationship should be mandatory, right? I think relationships that have more flexibility around that, I think that's healthy. And I think she's right that makes things more complicated. And so I look at it and go like, yeah, you're right. But I guess I'm wondering, well, what do we do about it?
I don't know the answer to that. That thing you're supposed to know the answer to that.
The answer is, let me see, the answer is to give yourself, the answer is to give yourself more grace, or the answer is to expect difficulty. Be okay with your relationship being challenging. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to be hard. If you want an exceptional relationship, you have to work at it. It's going to be difficult. It's not just going to be, right?
But I guess the one thing that she kept saying was like, people are bailing on relationships that aren't bad. They just think that there's more out there. The grass is greener, I don't know. Is that a good thing? Like, is the grass always greener? For a short time, right?
I don't think the grass is always greener, and that's an interesting thought that people want more, so they're more likely to bail and look for something else. I guess that's a risk of it. I still think it's healthy to expect a lot in your relationship. I should listen to. I'll listen to her book or her podcast.
We'll come back on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all our questions. Appreciate it. This will be up on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. And this was fun. Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you.